Welcome back to the Julixa Media Podcast. I'm your host, Julixa Newman, and today we have the honor of speaking to Rachel Ford Hutman, president and founder of Ford Hutman Media. Thank you for joining us, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you founded Ford Hutman Media.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in and listening. Rachel Ford Hutman. I founded Ford Hutman Media about 3 years ago. Actually, I was leading a global communications role at IBM Watson Health, which was their life sciences division at the time. And one of my colleagues, he went and started a venture fund, and he was like, "I'll be your first client." And I was like, no. And he's like, "No, you have all the relationships." He's like, "You'd be so great at this. You should do that." And I was like, "No, it takes really special people to start your own company." And he was like, "You're really special." And he became my first client. He's still a mentor of mine and good friend. And he really encourages me, and I think he gave me that push I needed to found the company. But a bit about the company, we're a communications firm specializing in life sciences, and we work with mostly biotech and digital health companies all over the world pretty much. But we do have a focus here in the US.
I love that. So at first you were scared to even start your own company. I feel like every time I talk to another female entrepreneur, that seems to be the trend. And when then I speak to male entrepreneurs and they're like, "Oh no, I knew I had it all along." I'm like, "Really?"
Yeah. Have you ever heard there's like a survey about how like when women look at a job description, we think we have to have every single one of those things listed on the job description
Yeah.
even to apply? Where for men, they're like, they have like 50% of them. Apparently they're like, "Oh, I got enough. I'll go for it."
Oh no, they have 50%. They'll BS the other 50% and they have the position at a higher rate, mind you, which is, I have a chip on my
Yeah.
shoulder about that one. All right, that's great. What are your core values as a leader and how do you implement them in your day-to-day work with your team? I see that online your team just keeps growing. I'm like, yes, Rachel.
We're definitely growing fast. I mean, there's never been a better time right now than now to be in healthcare and technology. These are incredibly robust industries. We're seeing the convergence right now of healthcare and technology. COVID made it so incredibly important as well. So yeah, things are growing fast. But in terms of core values, I would really say humility. I think the biggest thing I've learned in this role is just that you're there to support and be a teammate. I think before, I was a CEO, I thought, oh, the CEO kind of makes everything happen. And that's really not the case. It's really kind of just being there to support. And, when people come to me, I kind of try to always say to them, "Well, what do you think?" And then they tell me their thoughts and I say, "Yeah, that sounds like a great idea." It's not always telling people what to do. It's actually the opposite, which to me was really surprising.
It's more of like a coaching role, right? You want to be able to coach them so that in the future they know what needs to be done and how to handle things.
That's exactly it. Honestly, Lixa, it's really just being supportive to them and helping them kind of grow and so they can all be CEOs one day too. And that's kind of how I try to lead. And, obviously being friends, we love to laugh, all of that, because if you're not enjoying what you do every day, then why are you getting out of bed, right? This is hard
Right.
stuff that we're doing. We're basically just solving clients' problems. I always try to kind of simplify it that way. But we do have to kind of have fun and laugh and, like if
Yeah.
somebody messes something up, I'm always like, well, hopefully that's the worst thing that happens today. We could, got it out of our systems, we just
It
move
usually isn't.
on. That's one of the things I always
As
say, like,
far as like crisis management, let's say, they do need crisis management. How do
yeah.
you ensure that your clients are prepared for this
Yeah.
potential crisis? How do you handle it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, crisis comms, unfortunately, is a big part of what we do. And I saw that firsthand quite a bit when I was at IBM Watson Health. We felt like we're putting out a fire almost every single day there. So unfortunately, I know way too much about crisis communications, and
That's a good thing.
I'm not scared of it too, because that's the other thing. I think when people haven't done a lot of it, then they do get kind of nervous about it. But it's always being prepared. And so we always kind of know what those watch outs for clients are. Like layoffs, unfortunately, right now are a big one. And so it's kind of talking through the reasons behind the layoffs, making
Mhm.
sure we have our external messaging really solid so that there's no surprises. And honestly, it's kind of how I work with my clients. I always say, like, we have to be right there, part of the team. You can't call me last minute and say, "Hey, something's coming up tomorrow," right? We need to know in advance. And so it's really being a true partner to your client and then just making sure we're prepared for any questions that could come, have a statement ready, making sure the right people within the company know not to talk to media. That's a big thing too, right? It's like you really need to control that external message when it comes to layoffs and things like that.
Have you
So,
ever had an instance where someone speaks to the media way before you even got your hands on them to tell
oh,
them,
for
"Do
sure.
not comment"?
Yeah, for sure. Again, I mean, I feel like I'm harping on IBM quite a bit, but yeah, I mean, a lot of employees at IBM would constantly talk to the media. And so that was a really challenging thing. I felt like we were always dealing with, we didn't even know sometimes because, a small group of people would be in a meeting and then immediately somebody would go leak it to the media. Next thing I know, we're getting calls and I'm like, what program's being shut down? Like,
Oh, no.
it was like
Oh,
constant.
no.
Yeah, it was really intense, but I think that was such a great experience. I work with a lot of startup companies as well, so that
Right.
experience really just taught me so, so, so much.
And the startup, companies that you're working with, I mean, they're blessed to have you because
Thank you.
you come in with a lot of experience and knowledge that, would
Yeah,
probably take them a good 5, 10 years to be able to acquire.
yeah.
So they're really blessed to have you. As far as, success, how do you measure the success of a PR campaign?
Yeah,
What metrics do you take?
yeah, well, I mean, that is one of the challenges in PR, it's not black and white, like
Right,
some other industries, unfortunately. So sometimes it's positive sentiment. We actually look at the message pull through of stories. So how
right,
much of the message actually came through in the way that we wanted into the story. So sometimes like you want them to pull directly from a press release, for example, because that's our messaging. It's very sound.
right,
Sometimes clients get mad when they don't get more interview requests. And I'm like, but if we had some really good coverage out of it, I'm like, well, our message was pulled through. So we got what we wanted. We normally do try to have a target of how many stories we're going to get because it depends on what that news is that you're releasing. So we do try to gauge that going in, because sometimes clients
right.
might think something's bigger news than it is. And so I have to kind of level set those expectations. And then we also, of course, look like social impressions, looking at how many people might have tweeted the news. So it's a lot of things together. And then also a lot of PR is relationship building. So sometimes we might do an interview with a reporter, for example, but we might not get the story now. That story might actually come out in 6 months, right?
Exactly.
They remember the client. If we did a good job, they remember the client and want to talk to them later. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of different things, and we do have to be creative. It's not unfortunately just kind of one thing.
Right, it's also about building relationships. Once this
Very
company does
Yeah.
interview with, let's say CNN or Fox, and they did a good interview, they'll always be called back on because that's what happened to me several times with CNN.
Yep.
I was called back on for entrepreneurship on CNN Espanol because I built that relationship. So it's very important to tell them, build a relationship, just be funny, just be nice, just tell them that you're available 24/7 because that's also very important to them.
Incredibly important. It's incredibly important, Lixa. And I think too, being humble, like you said, they don't work
Right,
for you. We actually
right,
do something with our clients called media coaching. So ahead of interviews, we basically give them those tips for going into the interview. Just saying the reporter's name, in an
right,
interview goes a long way.
right.
Mentioning other articles of theirs that you read. Like even this morning, I just read an article from a Fortune reporter, and it was actually a really nice article. She was talking about basically kind of unsung heroes and like giving back. And it was a really nice article. It was about the SVB bank collapse, but she
Okay,
was talking about these unsung heroes that basically kind of helped people that needed money. Like people weren't getting their paychecks, right? And people that
right,
live paycheck to paycheck, need their money. Anyway, so she called out like 5 or 10 people that really helped these people that needed their paychecks. And I sent her an email and I was like, I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much. It was such a positive story. And I feel like we don't
right,
have enough positive stories in the media. But I just did that not even because I was pitching a client. I'm just doing that for good relationship building. It was like I really enjoyed this, and hopefully, maybe in a few months when I do have to pitch her a story, she might remember me.
right. You're definitely built for PR. I mean, if you're taking that step, you're definitely built for PR.
Well,
What do you
thank
consider what do you consider the biggest challenges facing the public relations industry today, and how do you address them at work?
I would probably say some of the bigger challenges. Well, for me personally, being a smaller shop, I'm a boutique communications firm, so we're about 6 full-time employees, and then we work with a cachet of consultants.
Right,
So our biggest challenge is probably going up against some of the larger PR agencies, like the Edelmans and Porter Novellis of the world, that have people all over the globe. So
right,
that is a challenge for me because it is pretty hard for us to compete. I mean, it depends on what the client needs. If you're a big pharma company and you need an office in Asia, like Ford Hutman Media is not going to be
Right.
right. I can get a consultant in Asia. But anyway, if you want like boots on the ground, brick and mortar office, that's just unfortunately not what we can do. The other thing I would say, I'm a little bit concerned about some of the stuff that's getting digitized, so you're kind of seeing that stuff with AI where
Yeah.
press releases are being written by robots. I don't think they're very good. I'm not totally worried about it. In fact, my husband, Mike, brought up the other day something about these AI, bots writing stories. And I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe in a few years, but from what I'm seeing right now, it's not a huge concern because these stories kind of suck and language does take nuance. So I don't think it's something that we can digitize very easily, but in the back of my mind, it's keeping me up at night.
No, I think it gives you a draft. It gives you a good draft, but you have to do so much editing. But by the time you're done with the editing, you might as well have written that press release yourself.
I could not agree more. That's
No,
exactly what I see.
I
You can
didn't I didn't watch it, but recently, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, South Park came out with an episode that was written completely through AI. So I'm gonna watch it tonight just to see if it does
let
make
me
sense
know.
or it doesn't make sense. Because
Let
that's
me know. Yeah, if it's
I'm
worth
like, that's scary. I mean, the writer should be like, "Oh, no, I might lose my
especially
job."
humor. I mean, humor to me seems like something probably AI wouldn't be able to figure out, but
Exactly.
that's very interesting. So yeah, I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm a little concerned about that kind of stuff. And I'm like, but I do think relationship building is so integral
Yeah.
to PR that that's a really hard thing, I think, for obviously
Yeah.
them to
Well, this
digit.
is a people's business.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
It really is.
As a mompreneur, how do you juggle it? And I like asking other, female entrepreneurs this because not every answer is the same.
Oh,
My
God, girl.
answer to this is balance. What the hell is balance? Isn't that like a protein bar? There's no balance here. But how do you manage to balance this? I know that you have a beautiful little boy. Uh,
Mhm.
how do you manage to make it to his games? I know he's into sports. How do you
Oh,
manage to, get your work done at the same time?
yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say is getting really comfortable with imperfection, and
Right.
not feeling like you're doing good enough. Like this morning, for example, I was beating myself up over something that I didn't do. I felt good enough for my son. And at some point I just had to be like, okay, I'm going to do better today, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, balance. And if you do miss a game, then you know what? I'm not going to miss the next one, no matter what. I do make a priority to volunteer at his school. He loves that. So as much as I can, I try to volunteer and do the field trips. And of course, they always end up being on the worst day. Like the last one
Right.
they had, I
Oh,
kid
poor
you
little
not,
baby.
it was the day coming off of Christmas break. So it was like January 2nd, and it was an all-day field trip. I was like, could this not be? It's like the first day we all go back to work. Of course, I've
No.
got a zillion things to do, but you know what? I did it. And I was so proud of myself. And I ended up working that night to catch up. But that's, I think, the things you have to do. And then also to just forgiving yourself because,
Yeah.
and
I
being
think we're
easy.
very hard on each other, on ourselves. Like we really are. We're like, hold on a second. Guess what? We're not stay-at-home mothers. We have professions. Being a stay-at-home mom, amazing job. The reason that I work is because I can't do it. I
Yeah,
can't manage all that. I don't want to manage all that.
I agree.
So I work.
I completely agree, Lixa. And I think also too, being present when you do have them. So that's
Yeah.
something I'm really working on too, is that when we're together, I do try to go to the beach and play
Right.
soccer and just really try to focus on him, put my phone away as much as I can, and just really, what do you want to do, buddy? Like really trying hard to just really focus on him because, I do have to work a lot. And so, sometimes
Right.
I'm really distracted. But all that said, I think it's great for kids to see. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and
Right.
I think she wished she could have worked, but unfortunately, she was born probably just right at the wrong time.
Right.
Um, she didn't have as many opportunities as I had, and so I always kind of am grateful that I am able to work and that I think he sees that, and I think later in life, he's gonna be like your kids and be like, "You know what? My mom kicks ass."
Yeah, I mean, I
Not
hope so,
for
right? I hope I'm inspiring them. I really, really do. Because sometimes
I've
I'm
seen
like,
it. I know you are. I
and I've been
absolutely are.
caught. I've personally been caught in the game of I am present in the room. I am on my laptop. They are talking. I am not listening.
I think that's
And like
yeah,
Ariana the other day walks in and kept talking and talking and talking. And I paid attention like the first 2 minutes. And then I just zoned out and I started working. And then all of a sudden I look up and I said, "What did you say?" She's like, "I was caught selling drugs at school, mom." And, she's a straight A student. I'm like, "Oh, I see what you're doing. I see."
it's
She
a
starts
joke.
laughing. Yeah. She starts laughing. She's like, how long were you paying attention?" I'm like, "I don't know, girl. You just need to get to the point. Like, let's just get to the point." I'm like, "I'm really trying. I need you to try too." And
Yeah.
I think it's a group effort. It's a group
I
effort.
agree. I completely agree. I completely agree, and I've seen your daughters, and I know how they look up to you, so I know you're doing a great job.
Now I
And
like
the
to
other thing
ask.
is there too is, like, they don't get all of attention all the time too, right?
Oh,
Like, that's kind of an important thing too, back with the balance
yeah,
too. Like, sometimes we do have to work, and I tell them that sometimes if I have, like, a late night project or something, which happens in our careers, shit comes in last minute, it's like,
right,
"Sorry, buddy, I gotta work so we can have
right,
all this," this doesn't happen for free. So
right.
sometimes I do have to set those boundaries where it's like, or we're gonna have fun later. I have to finish this project, then we're gonna go have fun." And I kinda try to then make it like a learning moment too, where like, "Well, sometimes you have to
Right,
finish your homework and we can't go have fun until you're done." Well, that's kinda what I'm doing right now.
right.
I don't know, sometimes it works. I mean, I'm literally just making it up as I go, Lixa. I mean, sometimes I think I'm complete, failure, and then other days I'm like, "Oh, I think I'm doing pretty good."
Yeah. Oh, no,
I
absolutely.
have,
But
like,
you
this
beat yourself up either about your profession or your home life at least once a day. Like, I just try to pick which one am I gonna beat myself up about
exactly,
today.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and then I would say, personally, the things I do because I obviously I'm a woman, so I beat myself up constantly
Mhm.
too. Just taking time for yourself because that's really important, I think, too. It's like sometimes your career doesn't get you, your partner doesn't get you, your son, you
Right.
need to like, take care of you and eating right, sleeping, um, going, for a walk, whatever. I'm trying to get back into meditating, it's like just taking some time for me I think is really important, and I'm trying to do better at that.
When you master meditation, let me know because I can't stop thinking.
I'm trying. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's like a full-time job, just, like, trying to figure it out, but I'm working on it.
Now, in order to make things easier at work, what app would you say you cannot live without?
Honestly, I'm just probably Google, I would say. I'm
Google.
all over the Google Calendar constantly, my Gmail. I don't have any, like, great app suggestions
Right.
besides those 2 and just, always having your phone with you, which sorry, you can't see, I've got it here it is. I mean,
Yes.
unfortunately, it's always with me, but there's not, like, a special work app.
Can you share a book, a movie, or a piece of art that has made a significant impact on you and why you found it meaningful?
Yeah, yeah. So I love the subtle art of not giving a fuck.
Yes.
I
Yes.
reread that one, like, every few months just because it's so funny and he
Mhm.
cracks me up. I can't think of the author's name right now, but I absolutely love that one, and so I have that one beside my bed, and every now and then I just kind of flick back through it again because it is so, so funny and true to life, I think.
I agree.
Um, yeah, and then I would say I do read a lot of articles about leadership, like Harvard Business Review. I'll check in on them and friends like you will send me stuff occasionally, about leadership and things like that. So I do think with being a good leader, it is the constant learning from others too, right? Like we don't have to have all the answers. And so I do try to kind of hear what other people, can share with me. And I think
Right.
that goes back to being a good humble leader because I think I really want to lead with humility.
Now I know you're on the West Coast, and when I visit the West Coast, I always bring my laptop and I'm always working. How do you manage to do you have clients on the East Coast? Or what does your day look like?
Oh my
What
god.
time do you get up? What time do you go to bed? When do you say, "Okay, I know that it's,
Yeah.
6 o'clock on the East Coast and they need me, but I'm out."
Well, first off, having a good team. I do have a good team and we all are all over the US. So I do feel like we have good management of all the different time zones. Every day is different. I do have the majority of my clients are on the East Coast, so I do start pretty early. I had some big news go out for a client on Tuesday this week, and I was up at 4 a.m. that day. Um, I will say I usually finish probably earlier
Good,
here. So like on West Coast time, I'm usually done around 3, so 6
good.
p.m. Eastern. So I do feel like I wrap up most days earlier, which is good because I do seem to start earlier. And working from home's great, so I can just kind
Yes.
of roll out. Like this morning, I did a bunch of work in my pajamas, before we got on. So I think that is how I kind of balance that, and then just
Yeah.
have a really, really good team to help cover me. So, like, sometimes we actually we don't right now, but we did have a client in the UK, and that for a while, and that was painful because for West Coast time, I mean, I was getting up at, like, midnight, to handle that kinda
Yeah.
stuff, and that was just not sustainable. So, yeah, you definitely have to have a good team.
I think those were one of the hardest times of my life, when I ran stuff for multiples and
Yeah.
75% of my employees were in China. I was getting up at 9 PM, coming down to the office at 9 PM, and my kids are going up to bed. It was really hard. Like, it takes a toll on you, your body, by
And
the
honestly,
time it's like noon the next day, you're done. Like, you don't wanna cook dinner? What are you talking about?
oh my god.
Um,
I worked with IBM. I feel like I've been talking about them so much for some reason, but I handled Asia and London. So, I mean, my calls sometimes, like, if you're for Asia on the West Coast, our calls would be at, like, 9 PM. That's, like, the window you have to catch them in the morning,
right,
Asia. So then I have, like, a 9 PM call. Well, that ruins your whole evening, but then sometimes I'm covering for something happening in Europe, so then I'm up at the crack of dawn. So, it's interesting because I do feel like I work really hard now, but compared to some of the other roles I've had, I actually don't think I work as much. I think my stress is probably higher now because I think I have a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. But, I mean, I remember at some of my other jobs and just traveling, like, twice a week.
yeah,
Travel, thank God, from COVID has really come down. So that's kind of funny because now I probably travel, like, twice a month.
right.
People think I travel a lot, and I'm like, "This is nothing." I mean, I used
No,
to come home and basically just, like, do laundry and leave again, and
right.
that's also why I think I wanted to do this because I felt like I wasn't in control of my own life, and I was like,
Delegating for me was also, really hard. Trying to delegate things to someone who probably doesn't have the passion or the vision that I had was extremely hard. Like,
I
to
agree.
even say, "Okay, this individual has the passion," or "This individual is responsible. Let me delegate this so that I don't have to do it." That took me a couple years to master.
I
I don't know if it did for you.
I agree, and I'm still, working on letting things go. That's still something that's challenging for me, like, certain things too, I'm very, like,
Right,
controlling about, like, media. That's definitely kind of one of my specializations. So, if we have a big media launch for a client, I'm pretty in there, and that's hard for me to let go of, and I'm trying to get better,
right.
but that's kind of my baby. It's like, that's my time to shine, and so, I really
I
I
love
love it. I love it.
I
That's
love that.
my
Quick question, where can we find you to inquire about your services?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so fordhutmanmedia.com. And you can reach out to me there, or LinkedIn is honestly, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. Rachel Ford Hutman. You can just message me there directly.
Okay, thank you for taking the time out to chat
Oh
with us,
my
Rachel.
gosh. Any morning, Lixa. Thank
I
you.
love it. Let's watch the South Park, then, circle back to see what
Yeah.
you thought of that AI
Love it.
episode.
Love it. We'll do a little follow-up.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in, and remember to follow Julixa Media on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for more tips, blog posts, and upcoming podcasts. Thank you.
I'll be there.
Yes.